Welcome back. The good old days of happy hours and hanging out after work seem to be a thing of the past. More workers are trying to draw thicker lines between work and the rest of their lives. A huge player in the so-called 501 and done mentality is depression and anxiety, because you got no life after work. Since the start of the COVID pandemic, 42% of employees globally have reported a decline in mental health. And here in the U.S., that number jumps to about 50%. So if more than half the workforce is dealing with symptoms of depression, it's no wonder productivity drops and people have a strong pull to be at home. My next guest knows all about it. A best-selling author, Arthur Brooks has made his life mission to share with the world the key to happiness. He has teamed up with Oprah Winfrey, a brand new book outlining the formula to achieve the life you want. Harvard professor Arthur Brooks joins us now. Arthur, great to see you again.
Nice to see you too, man.
Now, let me ask you, when I was reading that, did you say, I get it, I understand it?
It's classic.
Why?
Well, the reason is because people who have friends at work, I'm talking real friends at work, are the happiest workers and the happiest people. If you're drawing these bright lines between work and non-work and saying, look, I don't hang out with anybody at work, you might have friends, but they're not real friends, they're deal friends. And we know the difference between real and deal. If all the people you work with are just your deal friends, that means you're spending most of your time with people with whom you have no emotional investment, and you're going to be lonely.
So you open up and tell your story about your mother-in-law.
Yeah.
And your mother-in-law said, I was so happy in the second half of my life and the first half of my life, and she was in the last days of her life.
Yeah.
What about her life really helped you write this book?
Well, my mother-in-law, she lived most of her life in Barcelona, and she had a very hard life. She grew up during the Spanish Civil War, and then she had a marriage that didn't turn out right. Her husband ran off when my wife was a little girl, but she built her life around this one central idea. You can wait for the outside world to change. You'll be waiting for the rest of your life. It'll be written on your tombstone. Or you can actually work on yourself. The only thing that you can change is inside. She used to tell me that again and again. Now, I got my PhD as a social scientist, and I said, I'm going to study what exactly she did. And what I found about how to re-engineer your life starting inside out is written in this book with Oprah Winfrey for everybody, including me, to change my life.
You have a couple of questions that you ask everyone, whether it's in your class or somebody you're talking to, about happiness.
Yeah, I ask, there are a lot of questions that I quiz my students on, but one of the key problems that a lot of my students and a lot of us in life have is meaning. What's the meaning of my life? And if you don't have meaning in your life, you're not going to be a very happy person. I mean, happiness is enjoyment and satisfaction and meaning, after all. So here's the test to figure out whether or not you have a meaning crisis in your life. Here's the two questions to ask yourself. Why are you alive? And for what would you be willing to die today? Now, there's not right answers, but you got to have your own answers. This is something super important for everybody to go on a quest to figure out. So those are the two questions. Why are you alive? And for what would you be willing to die? Find those answers, you find meaning.
When you found the answers, what changed?
And for me, boy, everything changed, because I actually had a direction. I would wake up in the morning on my worst days and then know what I was actually doing. And I've seen it with my adult kids, too. You and I have kids the same age. And you know that when they don't have answers to those questions, it's so depressing. I had a son who finally found them when he joined the Marine Corps. Now I ask him, he's 23, he's married, he's in the zone, and I ask him the question, why are you alive? Because God made me to serve. For what would you be willing to die? For my friends, for my family, for my faith, and for the United States of America. Boom, that boy's happy.
Wow, you were a French horn player.
Yeah.
You were very successful. You were a professor. You were an academic. Then you ran AEI, leading conservative thinker, powerful guy. But this chapter of your life you find most satisfying. Yeah. And some of your writings attracted Oprah Winfrey. Why?
Oprah Winfrey is a reader of my Thursday morning column in The Atlantic. She read it all the way through the coronavirus epidemic. And she read my last book, which was about how strivers, hardworking people, the people who watch this show, how they can get happier as they get older. And she called me up and said, why don't we collaborate on something? And I, of course, said yes. Yeah. And it's been incredibly productive, incredibly fun. Look, Oprah is dedicated to lifting people up and bringing them together in bonds of happiness and love. And me, too, using science and ideas. And that's what this book is about.
Where did religion fit in for you?
Very, very centrally. My Catholic faith is the most important thing in my life. And I'm not saying that everybody has to be Catholic. It doesn't hurt. But it's a good thing that we all have something bigger than us. If you want to be a happy person, you really need 4 things. Here's your happiness 401k plan. Faith, family, friends, and work that serves other people. And by faith, I mean something bigger than you, so you're not just focused on yourself all the time. Maybe that's the Stoic philosophers or a meditation practice, or maybe like you and me, it's the faith of our youth that we share. But you got to have something. It's super important. You can't find your way without it.
Right. When people say they're spiritual, they don't necessarily need to go to church. Is that a good answer?
It can be a good answer, but it has to be serious and it has to be practiced every day. A lot of people who say I'm spiritual but not religious, they actually aren't very spiritual either. You got to do something every day. You have to read something. You have to actually have a process of meditation in your life, or you won't get the benefit.
So what if I look at Arthur Brooks now at 59? How different would the Arthur Brooks of 39 have been?
A lot different. And part of the reason is, look, I had
already successful.
Yeah, well, I was teaching at Syracuse University in those days, and I was very grateful for that. I had my PhD, but you know what? I wasn't applying what I knew as a social scientist to my own life. This is the thing. I studied happiness, but I studied it like astronomy. You can't change the stars. You can just study them. Finally, my wife said, man, you got a PhD for a reason, right? Don't do research, do me-search. Why don't you use these ideas to put strategies together in your own life? I started doing that over the decades, and the fruit of that is the book that Oprah and I wrote. I'm going to share all the things that actually went right for me in my life with everybody else.
Did you learn anything from her?
I really did. She helps me to refocus what I'm doing. As an academic, it's easy to get a little bit too wonky, a little bit too technical. As we pass chapters back and forth, she would say, make this clearer, make this clearer. Remember, you're not writing for an academic audience. And she did a couple of things that were really important. She said, do I really want pure happiness? And I said, of course not. You need negative feelings, you need setbacks, you need experiences to be fully alive. And so she said, so what's the goal? I said, well, to get happier. So she said, your real goal is happierness, not happiness, right? And that's exactly right. So think to ourselves, like, you're not going to get perfect happiness, but you can always get happierness, and that progress is the secret to well-being and a better life.
If you have a purpose and direction, it gives you a
It's
confidence.
so sweet. It's so sweet because, look, it's not going to be perfect. You don't want it to be perfect. You need bad feelings. You'll die if you don't have fear and anger occasionally.
And now you know why this book is #1 in the country. It's called The Art. This is the author from The Art of Getting Happier. Build the Life You Want, Arthur Brooks and Oprah Winfrey. How did you get your name on top of Oprah's? Good job. How did you work that out?
She's an incredibly generous person.
Great to see you, Arthur.
Thank you, man.
Congratulations on everything.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.